I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, am I a possible replacement? Well, I've got an email here from a viewer, and man, I'll tell you, it's like reading this thing is like reading from my past, because this guy is starting to encounter exactly what I experienced with a girl I dated about, 12, 14 years ago. And so before I get into it, I've got a quote that I'd like to share with you. And it says, people who have integrity and who are comfortable and secure with themselves typically don't get involved dating other people when the person they are dating still thinks that they are exclusive. People who date or line up other lovers behind their back before a breakup are revealing their true devious and selfish nature. Honorable people will end a relationship without leading the other one on out of concern for the other's feelings. Plus, it's simply the right thing to do. If you encounter members of the opposite sex who are willing to scheme and deceive their current lover to be with you, that is exactly how they will treat you if they ever become unhappy with you. Well, this reminds me of this particular woman I dated years ago. It was like, for me, I was so into her when I first met her. It's like I couldn't help myself. I just felt so powerfully attracted to this girl. But at the end of the day, she was dating a guy who was an acquaintance of mine. I actually used to work with this guy several years before. And the thing was, she was still dating and hooking up with this guy. But what she told me was that it was over, and I didn't find out until 2-3 months after we were kind of seeing each other that she was also seeing him while at the same time she was seeing me. And we both eventually obviously figured that out. But by the time that happened, I was gonzo in love with her. And it was like kind of too late. I was just totally emotionally invested in this particular girl. But we dated for several years. And the one thing that I found out, and it really woke me up, was that it was just indicative of her devious nature. And as I got to know her family and see how the family interacted with one another, they were constantly lying to one another and deceiving one another, even though they were a really tight, close-knit family. And so when push came to shove, when they were fearful that the other person might not be happy with their behavior or what they were doing, or that something may not go the way they thought, it was easier for them to just lie and cover things up. And I remember I was friends with this gal for a lot of years after we had split up. And I remember one time we were talking, we were having some drinks and chatting, and she said, well, I can be very devious. And I was like, yeah. I mean, she totally knew it. She knew that was her nature. And there was a period of time right before we ended up breaking up where I got busy. I was kind of rude to her on the phone one day. I was just kind of short, and I didn't realize it. And 3 or 4 days went by, I didn't hear from her. I thought, well, that's kind of weird, because she usually calls me several times a day. And this is the way, when she would get mad at you, she would just stop talking, because she was a terrible communicator. Another thing that she totally admitted. And the thing that just really bothered me about that is I thought, God, say I end up staying with this girl and we get married a couple years from now. I get lazy, I get caught up, I get complacent. I snap at her on the phone, or I'm just kind of short with her. I'd be wondering, is she going to go and screw the next door neighbor or start dating other guys? And so when we went through this period of not talking for 3 or 4 days, she actually called one of these guys that was kind of in the background that she hadn't talked to, 8 or 10 months, whatever it was, and went and met him out for drinks and starts telling him about what's going on in our relationship, that we hadn't talked, and seeking this guy advice. And the reason I know this is because when we did talk a few days later, she told me all this. I just thought, man, it's like, what the fuck? It's like this girl, like weeks before, was talking about wanting to get engaged and want to get married to me, and wondering when we could move in together and stuff like that. And at the first sign of trouble in our relationship, she's already calling other guys. And from that point on, I was never able to trust her. And shortly after that, a few months later, we broke up, and that was the end of the relationship, just because I could never get past it. I just never... plus little things that I saw here and there were, just watching her parents be devious to one another, even though, and that her parents had been together, I think, close to 40 years at that point, and her father had cheated on her mother. And so that was just something that was indicative of the family. And I remember one of her brothers, we were talking, we were kind of talking about this subject, and his attitude was, hey, you snooze, you lose. It's, all is kind of fair in love and war. And that's just not the way that I'm personally made up. And I think part of it was after having gotten married in my early 20s, and then having to go to my wife and tell her that I didn't want to be married to her anymore. I felt fucking horrible for doing that. I felt horrible because at the end of the day, I was too much of a fucking weak bitch to break up with her. And instead of breaking up with her and moving away, I decided to go ahead and get married because I was fearful that I would never meet anybody better or worse, that I would meet somebody that was actually worse than my wife was. And I really struggled with that, but I felt it was the right thing to do, because a couple months before I broke up, I broke up with my wife, I ran into a gal who I had a crush on in high school, and I had the opportunity to hook up with her, and I really fucking wanted to. She was married, and she was in an unhappy marriage. But at the end of the day, deep down, I knew it wasn't the right thing to do. And so I didn't. I didn't hook up with this girl, and I never ended up seeing her after that, but I just felt it was the right thing to do. And it's just sometimes it's really tough when you meet a woman and you get involved with her and you get emotionally invested. It's really hard. It's like you see these things, but it's like you want them so bad. The sex is so fucking amazing. They're so hot, and you have such a great time with them. It's really hard to do the right thing at that point. And the lesson that taught me was that I was deluding myself by thinking that I would be different than the other guys that she was dating, because, hey, I'm more special, I'm better than the rest of these guys. But at the end of the day, that's just her nature, and that's not something that you can fix. That's not something that you can change. That just happened to be the way that this particular girl was. So let's get into this guy's email here. He says, "Hey, Corey, I have a couple questions regarding a girl I have met only a couple of weeks ago. I met her at a party from one of my friends, and at the end of the night, I walked her home with her now current boyfriend. Soon afterwards, she added me on Facebook and started texting me. She deleted her picture of her and her boyfriend and changed it to a picture of only her in it." I mean, this is exactly what happened. I remember the night that I met this girl like it was yesterday, because it's just, there was definitely an immediate attraction between the two of us. And I remember later on in the evening, she said, "Well, I got to give you my phone number because, this is towards the end of the evening. We're all going to go our separate ways." And I just looked at her and I said, "Well, you're with so-and-so." I was like, "I don't want your phone number." She goes, "Well, give me your card." And I gave her my card, and it had my cell phone and my office number on it. And even though I gave it to her, it's like I thought it's not really the right thing, but it's like I just didn't care. And so this was like on a Friday night, and then of course, first thing Monday, I think I got an email from her, and she wanted to go to lunch because she was in the insurance business. She did homeowners insurance, and so I was like, I bullshitted myself. I was like, yeah, it's kind of a business thing. And so we went to lunch, and we had this great time. The attraction was there. And then like a day or two later, she ended up texting me, and we ended up meeting up for drinks, and then we went out. It was like, we had this amazing conversation, and I was just totally becoming infatuated with this girl. She was just, she's just still she's one of the most beautiful, sexually attractive women that I've ever met in my life. She just was that hot, that amazing. But it's like, I remember walking right out the door, and I looked at her to say something. She just grabbed me and started making out, and she was just really aggressive, and I liked that. But at the same time, it's like at that point, I was already totally gonzo, and so I just ignored all these other things, and I'll be different because I'm much better than the other guy. The other guy that she was dating, I used to work with, he's a fucking douchebag. What does he know? He deserves to lose her, and I deserve a girl like that. Those are all things that I bullshitted myself into believing because I thought, hey, I'm going to be different. He says, she later asked me if I went out to a party at a club, with which I responded maybe. She was there with a girlfriend of hers. We later walked home and gave a hug. He says, I know, not the best way to go about it, but I figured she still has a relationship with a guy. She seems to be, listen to what he says here. She seems like a loyal woman. Unhappy in the current relationship and is looking for a replacement. Well, I agree, she's definitely, sounds like she's not happy in her relationship, and she's looking to line up a replacement. But at the end of the day, she doesn't have the guts to go it alone. She doesn't have the guts to break up with her boyfriend. Instead, what she's trying to do is line up someone that's better, and then when it's convenient for her, then she'll ditch the other guy. And obviously, this is a dude kind of like this guy wasn't a real close friend of mine. We had worked together, and I hadn't seen him in like 3 or 4 years at that point. But same thing, you know this guy, you know her boyfriend, and you're kind of doing something exactly what I did. And for you to think that she's going to treat you any different if she ever feels like the future of your relationship is in doubt, you're bullshitting yourself, just like I once did. He said, I invited her to go to a festival the next week for 3 days, and it seems like she doesn't want to go with her boyfriend. I have a feeling she's interested in me by the way she's been texting me. I was like, yeah, dude, it's pretty obvious that she likes you. He says, I don't want her to cheat on her current boyfriend with me, but I would like to do some indoor Olympics with her, so to speak. How should I go about it? The simple thing to say to her is, hey, I know you got a boyfriend, so if it doesn't work out, give me a call. I'd love to meet up with you for a drink. That's the right way to go about it. And if she texts you after that, make a date to hang out, have fun, and hook up. Just invite her to come over to your place for drinks. Just say, hey, well, I'm just in the mood to hang this week. How about we meet up at my place, 8 o'clock, drinks, and then send her your address. And she's already texting you. 99% sure she'll come over, hang out, have fun, hook up at your place if that's what you want. But all I'm saying is, if you get involved with this girl, if you're really hot for this girl and you think she's going to be different with you, this is exactly what she will do to you. Say you get together with her and you become her girlfriend, and everything's great for a year, maybe 2 years. But what happens? You get caught up in your career, your job, you get busy, kind of neglect her a little bit. Maybe you're short with her one day on the phone, and if she's really hot, she's probably got lots of options. And she's obviously very aggressive, and because very attractive, very beautiful women that have lots of options, they don't have a problem calling up a guy and inviting him out for drinks because they're used to getting what they want because they're fucking hot. Because most guys, they look at the fact that she's attractive and they want her, and they just want an opportunity. It's like I said. All I'm saying is I speak from personal experience in this area, and you just have to understand that this type of a woman is not the kind of woman that you want to have a long-term relationship with or an exclusive type of relationship. She's a great sex playmate, a great friends with benefits, just somebody that's fun to hook up with from time to time, but not the kind of woman that you want to have exclusive relationship or raise children or anything like that. Because a woman has integrity. When there's a problem in the relationship, she's going to say, you know what, I'm really upset with him. I need to talk to him and explain my feelings and explain where I'm coming from. But a woman like this, she probably doesn't have any communication skills like this particular ex-girlfriend of mine did. And so instead of fixing things or communicating like an adult, she's like, oh, well, it's probably not going to work out like all the times in the past, because this is probably how the majority of her relationships end. This is like a pattern that you see over and over and over again. So just as long as you know the nature of the creature that you're dealing with, proceed with caution. So if you have a question you'd like to ask me, or there's a topic you'd like to get my help with personally, the quickest way to get my help is to book a paid phone coaching session. You can do that by going to my website, click the products tab, which will be at the top of your screen, and follow the instructions for booking a paid phone coaching session. And I will talk to you soon.